the first one. We have a keynote speaker and a moderator. So let me please ask María Faury to come to the stage. Thank you very much.
So, good evening to everybody. My name is María Faury, and I'm very pleased to be here today. I used to be chair of the AMC for a couple of years, 4 years, and so thank you very much for inviting me here. It's really good to see all these known faces. So you asked me to talk about nuclear building capacity, and what I wanted to say here is, well, the outline of my presentation will be the following. When I chaired the AMC, I also chaired a working group on the implementation of the industry policy at Fusion for Energy. So I will start by recalling some of the recommendations this working group has done. And then maybe since I left Fusion and joined what some people might say the dark side of the force, so fission, but I think there's some similarities, and so I will try to also give you some example of the French strategic nuclear sector contract we signed 2 days ago, because it will also focus on industrial performance and attractiveness and competences. And from what I heard in the first roundtable, I think these words are also of interest for this session. And then I will also give some points about Nuclear Europe initiative and finalize with concluding remarks. So as I said, I had the pleasure to chair a working group. The idea was to, well, the industrial policy of Fusion for Energy was set in 2012 with the 3 objectives that you see here. First objective to deliver. So this is the objective Massimo really likes and emphasizes a lot. So to deliver the European contributor to ITER and the broader approach within the agreed budget, time, but also, and this is very important, this is why it's in bold, making best use of the industrial and research potential and capabilities among the Fusion for Energy members. Second objective, and I think that even if, of course, from the project perspective, it's important to deliver, I think that more and more with everything going out in the world, we talk more and more of competitiveness, European competitiveness. We talk about European sovereignty. And so I think, and that was the mindset at that time, that we should also look and prepare the future with objective 2, which is to broaden the European industrial base for fusion technologies, for the long-term development of fusion. Oh, this is really small. I'm trying to look at my notes. But the idea is to ensure a strong and competitive European industrial participation. And then beyond fusion is also to broaden the innovation and competitiveness on key emerging technologies. So the mandate of this group was not to redo the industry policy, because I think that it is very good as it stands, but to look at it more closely how it is implemented. And so this mandate was to look for objective 1 about the definition of strategic procurement, because the idea was to, on strategic procurement, how do we ensure the best way to retain skills and capabilities inside Europe, and then to tackle objective 2 and objective 3. So it was a very interesting group. We had made interviews from people from the ILO network, from the Fusion Industry Association, from ESA, from Eurofusion, etc. And we structured our work with, on the one side, the procurement process, so on the strategic procurement, on how can we embark the SMEs, and the other on how can we involve in an early manner the European industry. And so we came up with a couple of recommendations, namely to implement a technological development program and to better articulate the work between Fusion for Energy, Eurofusion, and also the European Fusion Labs. So I will not go through the strategic procurement because now was really, I mean, it's inside, I would say, the governing board and the fusion management, but the idea was how do we ensure that we make the best use of the European industry on the strategic procurements. On the SMEs, so the idea is was to increase the efforts to engage SMEs in the procurement activities. And so we made a couple of recommendations, such as reducing the financial entry barriers for SMEs in contracting by improving amount and condition of pre-financing payments, by accepting financial guarantees beyond those offered by commercial banks, direct engagement with European financial institutions, improving price revision clauses. Just remember, we started this working group in 2022, and there was a rise of inflation, so this was a really specific topic. And also in structuring matchmaking opportunities and facilitating the connection between system integrators and technology providers. Here it goes. Then on objective 2 and 3 and the early involvement of the European industry, and here we took the idea from ESA and we proposed to, oh sorry, this is very sensitive, huh? Okay, here it goes. It's like plasma. I just hope it will not disrupt. So, in this technology development program, so this model was developed by ESA, and to address the technologies that are necessary beyond ITER, and to develop technologies and competencies empowering European industry, and facilitate partnership between industry and public fusion research laboratories. So I was happy during the break to hear that finally this recommendation has been implemented and you signed the first TDP, so or second, I don't know, but I'm really happy that this recommendation is being implemented. We also realized that Fusion for Energy had some financial tools that they didn't use so far, which was the Innovation Partnership Instrument to develop long-term partnerships with companies. So I don't know if that one has been implemented yet, but maybe during the dinner you will tell me about it. And also one point was around the favorable conditions for intellectual property terms, other than those that are, of course, imposed by the ITER agreement. So this was for the following steps after ITER. And finally, recommendation tackling the collaboration between Eurofusion, Fusion for Energy, and the labs. And so the idea is really to have all these bodies align with one target, the success of ITER. And maybe also this needed to clarify the respective roles of each body. And also, I'm not going through all the slides, but one idea was also that was neutral for the budget, that was really using the strengths of each body to work in a more effective manner. And we had the idea that Fusion for Energy could be in charge of some contractual implementation of industry-related activities that were in Eurofusion, and Eurofusion retaining the scientific monitoring. I don't want to be too long because otherwise Belén is going to show me some there are only 5 minutes left or something like that, so I go on. We also had some other strategic considerations that were beyond the mandate, but I think that I heard in the previous roundtable something about this. The fusion regulatory framework, as you know, it is most often based on fission. So how to adapt this regulation to specific needs of fusion. And one other item I wanted to quote was also management of the know-how. We have expertise in Europe, and it's important that we don't lose it. ITER takes, fusion is a long-term path, and it's important that among the years we keep all the lessons learned in an effective manner. So, what can I say? I think that this tackles also what was being said in the previous roundtable, but again about private involvement. There's a growing interest in fusion, and how to take advantage also for fusion for energy. And so how to be proactive and with the private sector. I think that will wrap up my part with this working program. And now I will maybe switch to my new job because I think that there are some lessons and some synergies. In my new job, sorry, it's going on. I'm not touching anything. So as you know, it's the same in many countries in Europe, but in France we had what we call the French Nucléaire Renaissance, with in 2022 the President Macron launching this new Renaissance, and it covers many items, among them the extension of fission power plants beyond 50 years or 60 years, provided that of course they still comply with safety regulation. Also a new build program with the construction of 6 EPR2s, aiming the first in service in 2038, and also a reflection, this will be decided in 2026, of 8 additional EPR2s in France. As the other countries, a strong interest for SMRs, for AMRs, and here there's also incentives from the French government. Of course, when you talk about extension of the power plants and new build, you have to be consistent and also reconsider the fuel cycle management. So with the confirmation of the renewal, the extension of plants involved in the fuel cycle, and also aiming the future for the second part of the century, having a roadmap, developing a roadmap for the fuel cycle closure. So what was very important is that we have signed, and this picture is brand new, it was signed two days ago, the strategic contract for the nuclear industry for the 2025-28. And this contract has been signed by government, by the unions and by the major stakeholders in fission industry. So it's quite something, it's something strong. It was signed before, it was signed in front of more than 650 people coming from the fission ecosystem. And so it really shows that it is important that all these shareholders are aligned on the objectives. And then, by the way, it's a public document. Sorry, it's in French. Okay, I have to go faster. With 4 items: industrial performance, skills, innovation, and environmental transition. Just to show very quickly industrial performance, and I think this is something of interest for you. There's on the one side, I said government was signing, and there are accompanying measures, especially dedicated for SMEs, to modernize their industry, to accompany leaders of these SMEs so they get to know the nuclear industry and they understand the specificity of this sector. And we also have the France Nucléaire funds. We had the first fund a couple of years ago, and the second fund was signed a couple of weeks ago. So it's co-investment, and it's backed by EDF, Framatome, Euratom, and Technicatom. Some concrete actions, and this echoes what we did in this working group. Of course, in France, well, we have a professional union, GFN, and so they offer to their members a lot of pedagogical support on cybersecurity, on regulatory compliance, on operation excellence. There's also the reflection on the relation between suppliers and customers and how to make something more partnership. Looking also at, we have a charter that is signed by a lot of companies in order to tackle the payment terms, how to share the contractual risk, how to share the monitoring framework to a shared monitoring framework to simplify the audits, the inspection, and documentation, which is quite time-consuming, and also identify in an earlier way the strategic industrial segments that need help. Another point I wanted to mention is attractivity and competencies. With the program I showed you in France, it has been foreseen that we will need to hire up to 6,000 to 1,000 recruitment jobs per year. So over 100,000 recruitments in the 10 years coming. So how do you do that? Because you need the skills. And so a lot of action have been taken, especially scholarships in the segments that are high demand trades, a lot of promotion, communication with nuclear career weeks that welcome more than 28,000 visitors. Looking at new pool for in recruitment, but not only the young, but also how we help carry out transition, reconversion, and how we ensure long-term skills across the entire professional journey. Just a word also to say on the nuclear, on the European side, I think it's very important, you know, to be strong together and not be totally having different voices. And so there is the Nuclear Europe that is in Brussels. It's an association representing the energy industry. And it's a voice for the European nuclear sector. It gathers 15 nuclear associations and 16 corporate members. And I think what I wanted just to say with this slide is that we have a new director for this association, a new chair, and one of the priorities that has been given to him was to look at the supply chain and how we can reinforce the European supply chain. So again, this can be also an opportunity, I think, for fusion. Concluding remarks, because I look a very unhappy face in front of me. So concluding remarks. Of course, fusion and fission are different. Of course, fusion, it's still not an industry by itself. It's still first of a kind with an economical business to assess. However, fission and fusion both are capitalistic industry and with long-term return on investments, but they both try to tackle the triple issues of decarbonation, competitiveness, and sovereignty. And as I said, in fission also we have this problem of supply chain with all these programs because we have this unprecedented ramp up in capacity of skills and industry I just mentioned. So, and we see this in France, we see this in Europe. One figure I think interesting is that by 2050, the nuclear capacity should rise from 100 gigawatts to 150. So this is really a European concern. And also you have the SMRs, the AMR, which they don't have the, especially for those not using the power plant technology, water, pressurized water, they don't have still the fuel supply chain. So just to say that we have shared challenges, and I think that there can be some synergies here to tackle. Especially, last thing I wanted to mention that in the industry, usually they don't just rely on nuclear, should it be fission or fusion. They also have other business in aeronautics and automobiles. So it's also interesting to look cross sectors. So I think there's a big opportunity. Maybe you might think I'm quite optimistic, but I think there's a big opportunities. And one thing, especially in the case of fusion, I think very interesting is the ILO network you have, because they are people that really can explain in your countries how to participate to this journey. And last point, I think that it is also important to have a proactive engagement with the European institution. This dialogue is important, especially in now times when we're talking about the Clean Industrial Deal, the PINK, the SMR Alliance. And so I think that we can join our forces together and tackle these issues all together. I'm finished.
Thank you, Maria. Now we're moving to the panel discussion, and I present to you the moderator for this session, Belén del Cerro.
Thank you very much, Stavros, and welcome to all of you. Thanks, Maria, for sharing with us the outcome of this important working group that was established in the F4E governing board. No? ILOs were also participating, very well in this discussion, and we appreciate very much the involvement that F4E has given us. So we are going to start now with the round table, Buildings Tomorrow's Fusion Industry. And in this session, we will focus on the opportunities and challenges for the fusion ecosystem, buildings on F4E's experience from ITER and its supply chain. So some of the questions that we are going to address are how to create a robust supply chain for fusion technologies in Europe. What are the mechanisms to involve companies and SMEs in fusion? How to secure and sustain technological leadership in Europe? How to empower industry to be an equal partner and not only a supplier. So I want to call now to our distinguished speakers. So first, Olga Bakardieva. Are you there? Okay, come on the stage. Olga is a key representative. He is European Director of Fusion Industry Association. Now, let me introduce you Bernard Blanc. Bernard is Director of Nuclear Development at Assystem, and he is also member of the Executive Committee of the European Fusion Association. Next one is Erik Fernandez. He is the General Manager of INEUSTAR, and he's also representing Fusion Europe, another fusion industry association. Carlos Hidalgo, welcome. He's Director of the National Fusion Laboratory at CMAT. He is also serving as President of the Science and Society Group of the European Physical Society and leading the Fusion Group of Euratom Scientific and Technological Committee. Next one is Antonio Pellechia. Welcome. He is the Sales and Marketing Manager at ASG, Superconductors. Next one is Philippe Thomas. He is the Head of a Scale-Up Program at the European Space Agency. Welcome. And last but not least, we have Thomas Babro. He is Chief Operating Officer at RTC, an SME from Slovakia. So, in this session, we are going to use Slido. So please take your mobiles, but put in silence, of course. Through this session, we will use Slido. You are, I guess, familiarized with this tool. And if you are not familiarized, after this session, you will be, for sure. So go to slido.com and press this code. You will be participating in some roundtable pools. And also, you can send your questions. All the questions will be addressed at the end of the session. So let us start with the first question. I see that you are already voting. The question is, do you consider the European supply chain to be currently at the forefront of the technological development in fusion? So we have here that F4E has injected more than 7 billion euros in the European supply chain. That represents more than 1,200 contracts, 700 industries working, 2,100 subcontractors, and 75 research organizations working. And also, the global supply chain is increasing with all these private initiatives. But it seems that people is thinking that no. Yeah, we have 75, 77, so I think that we can conclude that most of the audience is thinking that no, we are not in Europe at the forefront of the technological development. So that's maybe is, allow me to move to the first question for Carlos Hidalgo. It seems that there is a clear risk of missing the European leadership. I would like to know what are the main strengths of the European leadership in fusion and which areas require improvement in your opinion. So we have the same question for the audience, so continue with your mobile phone. And ask also the same question. We will show your reply after the Carlos intervention. So when you want, Carlos.
Yes, thank you, Belén. Well, I think first we need to recognize that, as mentioned in the previous roundtable, we are in a transition phase from this science-driven strategy where Europe has been, without any doubt, a leader in fusion. And this phase has been a great success. Part of our dreams to get energy in laboratories are now came true. And I think this is something that we have to recognize. And I think that this is part of our credibility to society, because this step was fully done with public funding. I think probably it's an example of good use of taxes, the support of society to make part of our dream a reality. But now we are moving in a different phase. And this phase is the energy-driven strategy. And the question is, are we ready in Europe to keep our leadership in this second dream, which is probably the most important, fusion for society? And I would like to answer that yes, we can, if we put a number of elements in our hands. The first one is that we have to recognize that time is of the essence. We are now in a competition. So the traditional approach, it was mentioned in the previous roundtable, sequential approach. We move towards ITER, DT operation. We design the basis of a demo prototype, and then we move after that in the commercial phase. This will not work. We will be out of the game. So the recipe is acceleration and parallelization in the program. Acceleration and parallelization with ambition in Europe and with credibility as well, both together. And the second ingredient that has been repeated many times is that in this new phase, public funding is not enough. So we need this private-public interaction. Neither the public sector, where we have most of the knowledge, nor the private sector, with plenty of dynamics, will be alone able to address this second dream, the most important, fusion for society. And of course, if we talk about the strength of industry, I think we can feel proud of how ITER has been very, very successful to mobilize industry in Europe. But also we have to recognize that many of the pending technological issues, we are still in a quite low level of development at industrial level in Europe. This is an opportunity if we are clever enough, but it's also a weak if we don't move fast and with ambition. So this will be my reply to your question, Belén.
Let's see what the industry, the audience think. Yeah, I see F4E, supply chain as a main strength, research. Of course, I totally agree with you that we have, the European labs is one of our main assets, knowledge, skills, experience. Some very short comment on this. Do you agree? Yeah.
Well, I think I see the word innovation. Actually, innovation is a key element, and I fully agree with the outcome for the audience. And I will argue that innovation probably will be an outcome of the private-public interaction. When you put the two sectors with people with different perspectives together, this is the best recipe to get innovation and clearly to address the pending challenges. For fusion for society, innovation is going to be a key element.
Yeah, so we have to prepare this magic recipe with supply chain, innovation, F4E, research, and know-how. Yeah, so let's go to the next question. So, Bernard, how do you think we should create a robust supply chain for fusion developments in Europe, and how can fusion industry associations support this process?
Thank you, Belén. So good evening, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Fusion for Energy to invite an engineering company. I didn't see the name engineering or construction on the next poll, so I'm a bit disappointed, but it's an opportunity for me to talk about that. So maybe to start, I have to share with you the Assystem background. So Assystem is an independent, I will come back to this word, engineering, multidisciplinary engineering company, which was established in France in the middle of the 60s to support the development of the French nuclear program. When I say independent, that means we are a family-owned company managed by the owner, so which is important when you take a decision with his own money. And independent means also that we are technology agnostic. Our business model is based on delivering engineering services to our customer to build something. We are builders or designers, project managers. So all my talk will be around this angle of engineering in fusion and developing our business around this to see if I don't forget anything. So today we are established in roughly 15 countries, 7,500 people, engineers, technicians, working every day. Fusion for us is roughly a team of 200 people working in France, mainly around ITER. ITER is definitively a game changer for us. We have been working for this project for almost, I think, 20 years. I remember a workshop organized by EFDA in 2005, December, here in Barcelona, which we'll call ITER, an opportunity for fusion in Europe. And we had a presentation from Pietro Barabaschi about the ITER project. So we know fusion is an old story, ITER also. It was really, it's still an opportunity for us to develop our business. It's also an opportunity for our people. It's really, fusion's really nice area to attract good people and to keep them, involving them in exciting project, which is ITER, which is generally fusion. And it's also, it was also for us an opportunity to build a point of view about fusion and fusion market for engineering. So that was really the main things. Maybe regarding the supply chain, a few things I would like to share with you. Again, with the angle of engineering company, I will place at the first row workforce. A project for us, our DNA is coming from big and complex project. The workforce is key for us. This is our main asset. So with project, we can develop workforce. But after that, we have to find work for those guys and the ladies. So the continuity is important to be able to jump from one project to another project, develop best practices, and improve what we are doing. That's a key thing for us. How to do that? We need some strategic investments. Strategic mean a kind of continuity. As I mentioned already, we are still deeply involved. We are coming from nuclear, and we are still involved in nuclear fission facility construction. And the French example where we stopped construction nuclear facility at the end of the 90s and restarted 10 years ago, we had to retrain, redo, rethink, and we lost knowledge, we lost best practices, and that's especially in the long-term business very critical. So for us as an engineering company, workforce development and trying to find strategic investment, which better coordination at the European level, I think that's possible, definitively. What's after ITER? What's before the end of ITER to prepare the next phase? And I would like to mention something in addition of the talk from Lucio. The Chinese are very impressive, not only because they are very well aligned, but because they are building things very quickly. 1 minute, all right. What else? Association maybe? Or what could be an association as a company with a significant background in nuclear? We are in several associations today for nuclear in France, in the UK, clusters, NIA, GFN in France, and so on. So we are very active in these kind of things because what we want to do is to be part of our future, to be able to build our future. So that's why we decided to be part, to be a founding member of the European Fusion Association. We started a year ago. We have been registered in November 2024 in Brussels with a royal decree, which is always an emotion when you receive the paper. We are reaching, as EFA, 60 members, and we started some actions, working groups for supply chain with IAEA, technology with Fusion for Energy, sharing our thoughts, sort of our members, and trying to identify what we miss. We met some high-level people like IAEA, Maria Grossi, or Commissioner Jorgensen, again to promote fusion, because association is really a nice area to have a collaborative work without competition, but with cooperation, even collaboration, to strengthen the business, to strengthen also the profession, and to make visible what we are doing every day. So
yeah.
we stop.
Thank you very much, Bernard. And I want to make the same question to Erik. Please, Erik, what do you think about this
Okay.
and how Fusion Europe is contributing to this process?
Okay, so thank you very much, Belén, and thank you for the nice invitation to this panel. I am Erik Fernandez, the General Manager of INEUSTAR, the Spanish Science Industry Association, and also one of the founders and member of the Board of Directors of Fusion Europe, the other fusion industrial association in Europe. So first thing, we should be optimistic, because you told that we are not, people was not thinking that we are leaders in Europe, but 51% of the persons in the room say that we are at the same level or at the forefront. So even 49% were saying no, the majority think we are at the same level or behind. So that means the majority. So we need to be optimistic, because we have a strong supply chain in Europe, and it's thanks to projects like ITER, and it's thanks to institutions like Fusion for Energy. It's true that this supply chain is made mainly by SMEs, and the robustness, as Bernard mentioned before, also needs to keep this knowledge in the future. So, you know, this sector, not only fusion sector, but in general the big science, and still fusion is a science sector, okay, it's in the science sector, is a sector of peaks and valleys. So we need to keep the knowledge we have generated in this work for the long term, because otherwise this knowledge can be lost. And in this moment, the main knowledge in order to manufacture a fusion reactor is in the public sector, that has been already mentioned. But critical know-how about how to construct some elements is in the supply chain. And if we lose this knowledge, we will need to restart. Okay, I have the feeling that I am repeating a lot of messages that many people have been telling, but this is a good news. Again, I am optimistic, because we all have the same view and we know what we want to do, because the knowledge now is in the public sector. We all know the end of the movie, which is the fusion reactor that will be plugged to the grid will be made by a private company. So this is the end of the movie. So we are starting this transition from one world to the other. And we agree in that we need a public-private partnership. We need to collaborate between the public and the private ecosystem. And this is not easy. So I think I like the words of Carlos about that we need to be ambitious, but we need also to have credibility. And Carlos, if you leave me, I could add that we also need trust. And this is a key element. And I think my experience in Spain, so INEUSTAR is the Spanish Science Industry Association. This year is our 15th anniversary. We have the experience that in this world where you need to have a collaboration between the public and the private sector and also with the public administration, not only public research organization, but also with CDTI in Spain, the ministry and whatever, we need trust. And an element in the middle, like an industrial association, could help to this. So in Spain, we not only have the Spanish Science Industry Association, but also we have a technological platform that was impulsed by CEMAT, but is led by the industry. So that's important. So having elements in the middle is important. So that's why I think that in this transition we have started, you could have an opinion if it is too late, if it is too early, if we need to wait, but I think the process has already started and we cannot stop it. I think the role of the industrial association is critical. So in Fusion Europe, the objectives we have are the same objectives that Bernard mentioned. So we want to help in this process. So we have been established in April, also in Brussels, so we are quite similar. And we have the only two national associations we have in Europe, which is the German one and the Spanish one, and also a group of companies are supporting us. And we want to help in this process that I think is essential in this moment.
Thank you very much. I was looking at the ranking, so the audience is thinking that we need a European fusion strategy, and this was also stated by the Fusion Expert Group position paper, no? The importance of urgently having this strategy. And also we see a technology development program, such as the one that is being launched by F4E on key enabling technologies. And the third is public-private partnerships. So do you want to comment on this, Bernard? Yeah, very shortly, please.
I fully agree with the first one, but
Okay.
Don't forget to mention that it's written here, roadmap strategy, including new facilities.
And new projects, yeah,
So
you're right.
That's key to keep going with strengthening the workforce and the knowledge. And I forget to mention in my previous talk that one thing will be really interesting for engineering the project, and I'm sure Maria will agree with me, it's AI. We are not using AI, not enough, let's say. It's the very beginning.
Yeah.
For science, for sure, but for engineering the project, it's definitively
clear.
a solution
Industry,
to go fast.
supply chain, need
Definitively.
projects. Yeah. Erik, very short.
Yes, I am surprised that the financial support is so low in the.
Okay.
But I agree with the three first one, absolutely. The only thing I could add is that we need to do this time together between the public and private world.
Yeah, thank you. I move now to Antonio. What is, in your view, the added value contributed by F4E to the development of a European fusion ecosystem? In your opinion, which is the importance of this long-term cooperation program, filling the gaps, such as, for instance, the TDP, the Technological Development Program that we have seen? Yeah.
Thank you, Belén. So first of all, thank you for having me on the panel today, terrific day. Let me do a brief step back before I get into the topic of your question. So we started before with the words of Massimo Garriba that I appreciated a lot. Everybody should do his job and be excellent at that. I think European Commission did it right when ITER started, you know, in funding fusion for energy and empowering fusion for energy. So what should the party do? European Commission should devise strongly a decision to go for fusion, unconditionally in a time frame which is credible and short, setting a budget which is meaningful. And then it should be the research institution together, I'd love in my dreams to see with the integrators to set what makes sense to put the money to. And then comes fusion for energy. I think fusion for energy is the one agency of the European community who can transform a goal in a set of how statements in order to make this real. They did it already, in a way. So let me go back again to what also the commissioner said before. We got to have a strategy, but not the statement we had in the documents that have been published lately. It needs to be something workable, first of all. Let me go back to Fusion for Energy. So, I mean, we are all partners now. It's 12, 13 years we're working together with Fusion for Energy. We saw them in the initial phases, let me define them as heroic, where people were really throwing themselves at solving problems. New projects, new deliverables, new set of rules. And although the legal basis on which these projects were funded was very complicated, we had a partner with us. I mean, contracts were very tough, enormous liabilities, a lot of financial burden, but we had a partner that was fighting along with us in order to solve problems. And this brought to success. I'm speaking for the magnets, but many in the room can speak for other elements of success of this collaboration. So why Fusion for Energy as a key role? Because Fusion for Energy has the right structure, competence from the legal standpoint and technical standpoint to manage this kind of contracts and to be, how to say, aware, technically savvy to foster supply chain in all of the European countries. One point that was said before, what was the difference between China, United States, UK, and Europe? China, United States, and UK took a decisive, strong directive approach towards fusion. European community is not doing that yet. So this is one step change that we really require. A moment ago was also hinted about the possibility for SME to participate or for private industry to participate into, with own funds, into fusion. This is not what we are meant to do. This is not our goal. This is not why we exist. We are industrializers. So we are going to, I mean, in a way, ourselves and Fusion for Energy have the same mission. We are on the how side of things. We got to make it possible. So how can Fusion for Energy contribute to the future? Fusion for Energy can contribute with, of course, procurement, with what María Faury presented, with making it accessible for small, medium enterprise, which are probably the majority of the companies in the room, to access the market opportunities, to have financial support, to have fair contracts. Contracts are tough. So among the responsibility of Fusion for Energy, that let me stress it again, needs to be the champion of European supply chain, is also building effective private-public companies. We said this before. But this is a very tough task because our legal system doesn't allow for that. So it's a lot of demands. Let me focus on one other point. ITER is a fantastic experience. ITER brought European supply chain to full speed, having experiences we had in our companies to a maturity point that we saw. I mean, we saw simply in the project. That maturity point is now old. Technology went further, and we are losing on that game. What means we are losing on that game? That it means, among the many other things, that the people who did ITER, the people who conceived ITER in the companies and at Fusion for Energy are retiring. So what do we need? Why we are asking for such decisive action, why we are asking for sensible funding. That means selecting carefully the projects, funding them in small numbers to be meaningful for the technology and for the companies and for the core competences in the companies. Because we need to have continuity, we need to form people, we have to have young professionals that keep the know-how and develop new know-how in order to be at the service of public institutions, startups. But this is fundamental. Otherwise, I mean, the same Fusion for Energy in 5 years won't know what they should buy from whom. And this is quite fundamental for us, I think. So I hope I got your question.
Thanks a lot for sharing with us this important topic, how to attract the next generation. I see that most of the people want to highlight the importance of the technology development program that F4E has recently launched. Also, cooperation with private initiatives is in the second position, and supporting testing and demonstration facilities are in the third one. So, channeling public expenditure, for instance, is in the sixth. So, a very short comment on this?
Very short. TDP are fantastic, and it's all we have at the moment. So, we should make best use of it. Only TDP funded with 1.5 million for 50 different projects won't be meaningful. Lucio said it very well before, it needs to be meaningful. That means it needs to be proper funded with proper goals. Differently, it won't make any difference. If I can invest $100,000 on HTS magnets, which are the future, I'm not learning much. If I can invest a number of millions, then, learning is by doing, it's not by studying.
Yeah, and what is important also is that allow the early involvement of industry, I think. So
we need to be in it, up our chain, absolutely.
So next question is for Bernard and Erik. I would like to know if, do you prefer to have a single industry association or representing the entire industry, or do you believe that it's better to have multiple organizations? You are working on this, and I would like to know more whether you see an added value in joining forces, or if you prefer to act independently, and why? No?
You start? Yeah, I can start, no problem. Thank you. As I mentioned already, as a Assystem engineering company, we are already involved and active on several associations in France, not only in UK, all around Europe. Each association brings something on the table and our progress. So I think diversity could bring benefit to everybody. So that's the first point, because what we can say is that we are let's say, at the very beginning of the journey, okay? I fully agree with Erik when he mentioned the fact that we need an association to be a voice, to work with institutions, let's say, allow the members to manage their growth and to develop industry, that definitely, because it was already shown by other sectors. So around the table here, we are 3 associations, FIA, Fusion Europe, and European Fusion Association. In EFA, we have members who are in EFA and FIA. In EFA and FIT, the Fusion Industry Task Force from the UK. You may have seen that we signed an agreement with FIT and FIA for collaboration and trying to enhance our collaboration, because we recognize the fact that UK has a significant program. So I think that's a good one. Again, I'm back on the diversity. So as EFA, we have decided to go forward, deploying our actions and trying to make fusion industry. Having said that, we had a very positive and constructive discussion during the IBF, together, each board members, trying to respect and understand who we are, where we are, what we want to do, where we want to go, and trying to find the best way for collaboration and maybe one day more.
Thank you, Bernard. I think diversity is good and enriches almost everything, but I think in this case, having two different voices is not good. I think is in the moment we are, in the transition we are having a clear leadership of the industry is essential. And having different voices from the industry, I think, is not good for the supply chain. So that's a point where we differ. So yes, I agree. We have a very fruitful conversation during IBF, and we continue sharing some discussions in the last weeks. But my point and the point of the board of directors of Fusion Europe is that it is better to have a single voice. And we are putting all our efforts in order to try to find the common point of view that in this moment the objective is the same. We could, personally, I made a deep analysis of the articles of both associations, and the differences between them are very slight. So the main difference is in the establishment of the board of directors and the duration of the first one. So that's the key.
Okay. And I want also to ask Olga, because she is also representing FIA. What do you think about this? Do we need a single voice?
Thank you so much for the invitation, and hello everybody. I agree. I think we need to speak with one voice if we are to reach our final goal. So the more, the merrier. But we need to go into the same direction, and I think for us at least, we are happy to say that our members are unified around one goal, which is to make commercial fusion a reality.
Okay, thank you. I see that most of the audience think that they prefer a unified representation with 57%, and 28% prefer multiple organizations. So it's clear, the message. So now I want to move to Olga. Do you think that is the European supply chain prepared for the worldwide demand that we need in the fusion field?
First, maybe just to say that, yes, it was mentioned that I represent the International Fusion Association, and this is the leading voice, the global voice, representing the whole value chain, starting from manufacturers, including startups and investors. To go to the question of the supply chains, I am optimistic. I am rather optimistic. Of course, it was mentioned that here in Europe we have unique conditions to build on the existing industrial ecosystem around ITER, which is great, but we need to go beyond. We need to grow out of it. We need to make it agile to address the needs of commercial fusion. So the supply chain needs to adapt to that. Yes, I said I'm optimistic, but there are constraints. There are a number of roadblocks, and I will mention at least a couple of them. For instance, we have the so-called chicken and egg investment dilemma, where on one side we see that the suppliers, they are there, but they need commitment from the fusion industry companies. And then on the other hand, the fusion companies, they work with milestone-based cycles, and they have difficulties to meet and to respond to these requirements for commitments. Of course, there are also a number of other issues related to for instance, having very highly specialized components and so on that require long lead times, backlogs, they're very costly. So all these things, they add up to the difficulties, I think, that in any case are out there. I just want to mention that as fresh as last week, the FIA actually published its global supply chain report, which looks at the data for the investments in the global supply chain for last year. And I'm happy to report that we see encouraging signals that almost close to the investments have almost doubled, very close to doubled. So this is good. The numbers are not big. We're talking about 434 million or so in dollars, but of course, yeah, this is a growing, encouraging signal. So just to finish off on that, from our perspective, we need to adapt the value chain to address the challenges of meeting scale-up industrial fusion. But of course, we have the unique, beautiful conditions here in Europe, also with workforce, for instance, and skilled workforce and talent that we could use going forward.
So we can see now the reply from the audience. So maybe we need some improvements, no, in order to be prepared. So do you want to comment?
Well, just a brief comment is that our members actually in the survey, as part of our report, has said that yes, currently at least one component, for instance, they will face some difficulties. So I understand that the challenges.
Yeah. So I want to continue with you, how to empower industry to be an equal partner and not only a supplier, because this is also important, this transition.
I have, well, we like to say here that we have 3 different chapters to support, that we need to address in order to support industry to go forward. And the first and foremost is really to have strategic alignment on regulation. We need to have the proper regulation. Number one, of course, for us is to have European fusion strategy. So we are looking forward to the European Commission, good encouraging signals with the publication last week for the consultation, but we need to get it right. We now have a momentum around that. From our perspective, we need the right regulation to be ordered. In order to get the industrial fusion going, we need to regulate different than nuclear. We need to have also a harmonized approach with international developments at international level in order to avoid fragmentation, frictions, and ultimately in order to avoid killing innovation. And then going to the second chapter, actually, which we need to push and scale up fusion. This is, yes, funding and attracting funding. For us, we need public funding and private funding going hand in hand. If we look first at the public funding, we need more money. We need dedicated funds at the European level. We need to adapt what we currently have in the form of existing programs to fit the needs of startups. They're just not adequate for that. And we need to also be looking at other possibilities, sustainable financing to attract investors. And then when it comes to the private funding, we need to de-risk. So this is an industry that needs to have assurance. We need to de-risk public investments. We need to look at capital ventures to expand, and this is highly needed. And perhaps the third point that we need is really public-private partnerships. It was mentioned many times. Our main message here is that we need to actively involve industry and to make them an equal player and participant. there are a lot of positive signals right now at the European Union for this moving forward, but more is needed in terms of how to design it, governance, and yeah, just having the industry there.
Okay, thank you. Let's see now what we can learn from other fields. So, Philip, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. Could you please elaborate a little on the importance of these long-term cooperation schemes, the technology development element that you have at ESA? Could you please share your experience working at ESA? Yeah.
First of all, thank you very much for inviting me. I started my career in the energy industry, and I remember back in 2010, 2011, when Fukushima happened, the star of the nuclear industry was quite low. And all these years later, it has risen quite rapidly. So it's really good to see that. I've also, before joining ESA, I worked in the UK government, where I was involved in setting up the National College for Nuclear, because we realized in government that there is a critical skills gap. And it goes to one of the points that you were saying, one of the panelists. You simply cannot switch off an industry and then expect the skills to be there when you switch it on later on. It has massive implications, and I know the struggles we faced in the UK. So, policy decisions have impacts over decades, and they must be taken very carefully. But to come back to your question, what we are finding in the European Space Agency is we have a portfolio of technology development programs. There isn't just one. And fundamentally, what the European Space Agency has been doing since its inception is technology de-risking. So they de-risk technologies, and they take them up the TRL scale. But when it comes to the questions of sovereignty, sovereign capability, competitiveness, industrialization, it is not just enough to have a pure technology development program. So you have to complement technical de-risking with commercial de-risking, and they have to be done in parallel. So traditionally what happens is, you have very highly qualified engineers working on a product, on a technology, and they make it, TRL mature, and then they try and solve the business problem. It's already too late. You have to start thinking about, at least in space, and I think in fusion perhaps, it is slightly different, because, if you're able to have free energy, or near to free energy, then your market is already there. But a lot of the questions which have been raised, a lot of the points which have been raised by the audience and by panelists about PPP, about de-risking, all of this requires both the commercial problem to be solved alongside the technology problem. They have to be taken together in parallel. So what solution are you developing? For whom are you solving this problem? And what is the value that they are placing on your solution? I think one of the panelists said that there is a race for fusion. I mean, there has always been a race for space. And we are finding in space specifically that space is very similar to nuclear in that it's technically complex, it's capital intensive, it has long lead times, and it has a supply chain which is very specialized. And we are now entering a world where space is being increasingly industrialized. And it's being industrialized rapidly by countries who have a vision, who have a long-term commitment, and who have a different risk appetite compared to us. And for anything that is technically complex and risky, I would argue that you need these three things. You need vision, you need policy commitment, and you need to have a risk appetite. There is enough capital in Europe. It's just that the capital in Europe does not want to invest in something that is risky. Whereas capital in other countries invests in something that is risky, very often together with public capital. So you see the forces that we are facing are quite diverse and multifaceted. And it would be a mistake to just apply a simple technology lens to this, because that is not what is happening. The winners are not the people who have the best technology. The winners are people who are going to be, you may have a less than perfect technology, but if it is deployed, if it is operating, if it has captured a market, you're already there, right? Take the classic example of Windows. It's not a great operating system, right? But by market share, it is the leader. So I think, this is perhaps a dimension that I would encourage us to think about collectively. And also, we like to use the word Europe when we talk about comparing ourselves with other countries. But you have to compare apples with apples. And the fact is that the US, India, China, politically are different, economically are different, demographically are different compared to Europe. So we cannot take their playbook and apply it to the playbook here. So I think it's something that requires us, again, I come back to those three things. In order to build an industrial base, you need to have a policy commitment, which is long-term. You need to start thinking about the markets within which your technology is going to be deployed. It's not enough to assume that commercial companies are going to suddenly create those markets. No, they're not. So it is about creating those markets. It is about setting the regulation so that there is a level playing field and it doesn't become a winner-takes-all approach, which we are seeing happening rapidly. And these are the things that we need to start thinking about now and design the rules of the game and set the rules of the game. Otherwise, we will not be able to play the game in the future.
A lot of learned lessons. Maybe one last recommendations for building this tomorrow fusion industry. Which is your main recommendation?
I think we have to fundamentally be prepared to take more risk. I think it is about having a realistic approach to risk. So you may lose billions, but you have to be willing to play the game. Otherwise, it is going to pass you by.
Okay. We have also a question for the audience. What will be a key factor to ensure the success of the technological development program? And let's see what the audience is thinking about this. We have industrial base, funding, skills pipeline, long-term commitment, or human resources to manage the program. All these things are important. So maybe we can see the results now. Yeah? No? No. It seems that we are not able to see. Now it's coming. Okay, so people in the audience is thinking that long-term policy commitment is important to create stability. Of course, funding, the industrial base, commitment and human resources to manage the program now is in the third position. So do you agree, according with your experience, with these results?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm happy to say I'm in agreement with the audience.
Okay. So now I want to move to Antonio. Which is the importance of synergies with other fields for the supply chain? Developments in technologies and the management of complex projects should also offer interesting opportunities. What do you think about this?
It is fundamental, of course. I mean, you don't have enough fusion centers yet to keep companies alive. As my boss said before, I would have closed last year if I was to depend on fusion only. So there are a number of fallbacks, let's say, from working in such a complex and challenging environment, of course. Some are of sheer technological value. I mean, I'm coming from the magnets, so let me go back to the magnets. Jérôme and Sia brought the design of the magnets of Tor Supra to Isolt, which is the highest field MRI systems in the world for research purposes. We did the same in a different configuration. So this 1174 Tesla MRI system was developed, but for with a different take, with an industrial commercial take, or plasma heating systems are something that has a fallback on healthcare as a diagnostic instrument, can have a military fallback as, for example, forbidding drones or missiles from a specific area or people. Let me go back one step. I mean, these are the technological, allow me to say, immediate fallback of working in fusion. And these, to come back to what Gianfranco was saying before, are the areas where the companies do invest. We deliver what fusion asks us, and with the profits of it, we invest in order to develop something more. But there are other fallbacks which I think are equally important. And these, I mean, lie in the quality. When you deliver something for fusion, you need to be able tracking back from the material with which the last screw in the system was manufactured, up to how do you manufacture the stuff you do, how do you test it, how you keep record, how do you keep, I mean, all the, everything traceable in a way. And this is fundamental if you are supplying the military industry, the healthcare industry, other domains of research. If you are working for, I don't know, we work, for example, in the realization of particle accelerators for oncologic therapy. All this does matter a lot. Another thing, and there I got to say, is something we owe, again, to Fusion for Energy, is the capability of working with multiple interfaces. And once again, you might find yourself in installing systems in a hospital where the civil works, the electricians, mechanical companies are there, and you need to coordinate with all of them in a very effective way. So in a way, Fusion represents for SMEs a fantastic reference. It's like a mark of good guarantee. If you survived Fusion, basically you can make it everywhere, put it that way.
Thank you. Talking about synergies, I think that I want to put in value the marketplace, no, that F4E and Eurofusion has put in place, trying to look at how technologies developed in fusion field can be also used, no, in other fields. Now I move to Carlos. You are also an active member of Go for Fusion, the CCA that the European Commission has launched as preparation of the future PPP, public-private partnership. How could the PPP contribute to strengthen the European fusion supply chain? What is expected as return of investment by industry, and how to engage them? This was also asked by before. Are companies ready to invest in these co-program activities, sharing the risk, no? In that case, with the European Commission? A lot of questions for you, Carlos.
Yes, many questions, not easy to answer. I think this is an area where you mentioned the private-public partnership, where I see plenty of expectations by the whole community. And I think this is very good, because if we have very high expectations, means that, this is my interpretation, everybody understands this is a very key element in the new phase of fusion for society. But at the same time, with very high expectations, I see plenty of uncertainties. And these uncertainties, I think, it makes sense, because we are moving into a new unknown territory in the European strategy. These uncertainties are reflecting that we will see whether industry is ready to jump from a supplier role to a driving force role. I think this combination of very high expectations with uncertainties, I would argue, is an opportunity. This transition must be a success. My impression is that it will be a success because the very high expectations. It will be a success to promote knowledge sharing between the two pillars. And once we put people, hopefully the best people from the public and private sector, working together, I think this is a recipe for innovation. And innovation is something that will be a great help to develop the industrial chains. So this is one point. Innovation, because we have people, hopefully the best people, working together in this PPP. Second point, it was mentioned by Antonio, I think the human factor. The human factor is the key point. And I think this combination of public-private partnership will be very attractive for the new generation. So I think this will be one more element, very useful for the industrial supply chains and very crucial for the fusion for society that is our goal. And I think there is one more point that was mentioned by our colleagues coming from different fields. Sharing risk. And I thought that's something that we have to learn, how to share the risk. Again, this is an opportunity, and we have to see how these two elements, the public and the private sector, are clever enough to get a compromise, because we have to accept there is a risk, but there is also a huge benefit of a fusion for society. So from this perspective, I could argue that the PPP, with these three elements, innovation, because we have different perspectives working together, human factor, because we need to show something very attractive to the new generation. I think this is very attractive. And learning how to share the risks are very important ingredients in a transition that must be successful. And I think will be successful because we have very high expectations. And we have very high expectations because that's something that is needed in the program.
Yeah, I totally agree with this. The Trinomics study mentioned that companies could envisage 50% of risk sharing if there is a high potential of commercialization. So, yeah, I think this is also important. So let's see what the audience think. Yeah. So funding, it appears as a main topic. Yeah, it's not a surprise, I guess.
Yeah, well, maybe just a comment. Of course, funding makes sense because the private sector needs a market business. And this makes sense. So at the end, funding means that we have to be clever enough to develop a multi-scale market business, which means the long-term huge market once we have commercial fusion energy, which is not for tomorrow, but we need also the medium and short time scales of business market. And I think this means funding, but also means business.
Yeah, and trust. Do you want to comment something, Philip?
Yes. I think, so we hear the word PPP used quite a bit because it's quite interesting. But, fundamentally, private capital will not be put on the table unless they are assured of a return. Otherwise, what you are going to end up doing is you're just going to indirectly subsidize private companies, which, let's be honest, happens a lot of the time. And therefore, I think the focus needs to be on not looking at where the market is currently, but where the market is going to be. And that's where you need to act. And I think what you said about de-risking is very important, using public funding to de-risk investments, but being careful that we are not taking the risk, we're not taking risk that needs to be taken by private capital and giving them the reward. And that is one of the biggest risks of PPP, is that the public, the taxpayer takes the private risk and the reward goes to the private investors. And that's something that I think fundamentally you have to look at market design. Are you designing the market correctly? And I think it becomes, in my view, it is just as complex as the technology development. I would say the market development and the regulatory development is just as complex, if not more complex.
Okay, thank you.
One thing, Belén, if I can comment very quickly. So very short one on Philippe.
Yeah.
Actually, 1969, private companies were not investing in going to the moon. You know, they're doing it now, like 50 years after, when it is the risk to a reasonable extent at least. So that cannot be more true than that. Second thing, I've heard many times today that companies do not invest in fusion. They do it already now. We are not only suppliers. You know, we embark in projects that are risking the survival of the company itself, even only by delaying. So we dedicate our full premises to these works we do. So, I mean, I don't think it's correct stating, you know, companies today are not investing to fusion. They got to invest on a more balanced way. Absolutely, yes. Skills are there to do that.
Okay. Bernard, very short tip. Do you want?
Very short one. Trust is mentioned here.
Yeah.
Building trust, I would say. And the way something is missing, on my point of view, is project management. When I fund the project, I need a very strong project management to recover my money at the end. Building trust.
Okay, thank you. Thomas, I want to go now to the point of SMEs. SMEs are the backbone of the European business. What are the needs of SMEs to get more involved in fusion?
I thought that you forgot about me. It was like still sitting here quite. So now I'm going to speak to the end. I'll prepare. No, joking.
Last but not least.
Well, I'm going to try to be as specific as possible. The question is, what kind of SMEs we are going to target here? What kind of SMEs you want to get involved more? Let's put it on scale in terms of complexity, what they can deliver. Let's say at the least complexity are the things which are off the shelf. I mean, the things which the companies are standardly manufacturing, delivering, and so on and so on. So here the case is just to do the PR for the fusion energy, so the companies will be attending to the tenders, winning, not winning, and so on. So it's like the easy part. Then what other kinds of SMEs, the companies, let's say, which can do the more complex things, which can solve some issues, some problems. And then if someone is completely out of the fusion, so it's very unknown, the topic for them, and it looks very, very far away, and it's kind of the difficult to imagine that someone just, I don't know, having some middle size or a small size of company and just wake up the morning that, guys, now, I mean, the manager of the owner of the company, like, now the plasma confinement is going to be what we are going to do from now. That's hard to imagine. So let's say what probably the companies or the SMEs needs is to see clearly what they are doing now and how it overlaps with what can they offer to fusion industry or the fusion the projects, and then how they can apply to that. And I know that there are like things like the supplier days and so on, but if you would like to target those companies from a very beginning, it's hard to imagine that someone will now just like a random companies which can be capable of helping to attending some tenders and solving, let's say, some problems, tackle some, let's say, the medium-sized problems, to go to the industrial days for 3 days and so on and so on. It is obviously possible, but what I see is that it can be like one step more towards them. I mean, to do more job as representatives in a European Union, to have a website, which they are wonderful websites, but to better help the people better understand, the owners of the company, what they do and how they can expand it to the area of the fusion. If we would like to address those kinds of the companies, which can, like, from a non-fusion field go to the fusion field, because there definitely are the companies which are doing complex stuff, but in different areas. And then, well, the question is, for instance, from our company, we've been in the fusion for 8-9 years now. We started with as a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 3 supplier of the large organizations, and it took us 8 years till this point when we can close the multi-tens of million euro projects in the fusion industry. So it's a long way, and you also need to have, for instance, for our organization is a bit different because we are coming from, we've been already doing the things like solving the problems, the build to print, build to spec for the particle accelerator science, building the magnets, the vacuum systems, and so on and so on. So it was like a more natural point to go towards the fusion because we like kind of the intellectual challenging problems. But yeah, and other thing is to see the motivation. I mean, what they can get from it in a longer term, let's say. And it was addressed, it's been addressed multiple times today that this is one also of the critical part to see how then they can expand. For instance, now we've been developing now and won the tender for the 50 million euro for the development and the serial manufacturing of the high heat flux plasma facing components for the GT60. Now, what we can see, I'm just making example of our behalf because that can be like a good example, which can be, for instance, for our successful SMEs, like advertised, like to get inspiration from, like now we can attend to other tenders for the plasma-facing components. For example, the DTT, we can do the plasma-facing components for the Proxima, for the Gauss fusion, and so on and so on. The same applies to the magnets. For instance, the last week we won the tender for the new reactor, which is currently under construction in Prague. The Compass, we won the multiple million euro, kind of a small project for the Compass upgrade, doing the poloidal field coils. And now we can think about where we can apply. So this, what I wanted to say by this is that this can be also example. I'm not saying like us to advertise, but I mean the successful projects and successful companies who are in a field. And I'm not finished, sorry. And the third thing is the most complex, which was very well addressed today, and it is we are still doing kind of the build to spec things. We are solving the critical things. It's very difficult. It's more research sometimes than it's more engineering, because engineering is something you are combining the things like which are very well known. But the research is that we are like developing a high heat flux plasma facing system that many things are unknown, and you need to find a way to do a lot of experiments, like a months of the experiments which are not successful. But I want to say one thing that is that the third part is what was addressed here very well, is that kind of partnership which is addressing and tackling the problems which are not prescribed. I mean, there's not this is a description of the problem, bring the solution, but to find the problem and work on the problem itself. Like there are many things, as today it was said, I mean, I know the 3-team breeding and so on and so on. And this is kind of SMEs, I believe, they can also work very well at that, because as also was said that the many things need to be more constructed than to think about. Now is the time for building. And this is what SMEs are very well at. Speaking on from our experience, we can do, compared to the research labs, we can do like 20 times more experiments and gathering as much data from experiments than comparing to the studying the things. Obviously, you need to study the things. You need to understand. You can't build the wooden tokamak and if using the chocolate. But you need to also go for many papers. But this is this kind of the partnership, like SMEs and the institutes, and bringing the ideas of the problems and let them work together on those problems. This is, I believe, one area which is not very well explored now, to integrate SMEs, the small teams, the capable people, with the institutes to work on those kinds of problems.
Yeah, we can see now the reply from the audience, not surprise, return of investment, bureaucracy, administrative burden that has been mentioning. I want also to ask you about PPPs, public-private partnerships, because in those schemes you need to co-invest. Are SMEs ready to this?
Yeah, I believe the colleagues very well pointed out that what kind of the investments we are talking about. Are we talking about just the take the money from a pocket and put it on the table? Yes, that's the difficult question. But what we need to be also aware is that it's whatever the SMEs are doing, it's already kind of investment, because with the fusion, nothing is kind of the certain. It's not like getting the order to deliver something linear way, like do some kind of a robotic line or something. You need to many times address many problems which hasn't been addressed yet before, and some certain amount of uncertainty is already there. And you can use this knowledge, you can use this cognitive capacity of your people to other things. You can go for the fission, you can go for the automotive, whatever, the space, and so on and so on. But you already like investing it into the fusion, and sometimes, or many times, more complex the thing is, more uncertain the things, or the more uncertain the way, you don't know how long it's going to take, because no one has done that before. So, and it's hard to, like, sometimes it's not all the paid. I mean, like, you always need to finish the thing, whatever is going to be taking you. And that's one, I believe this is one of the investment of the SMEs, as I mean the large contractors, also for the GT60, the ITER. So it's already kind of investment. And other investment, what I believe is good, is kind of this kind of the partnership between what I'm personally very big fan is the spin-off from universities, from research centers. And this is, I believe, also one of the unknown or not very good export area, or not very largely supported area, because many things in the fusion are super specific, super unknown, and there are still many questions which need to be answered. And there are many people in institutes, in universities, and so on, who are very well suited for. We see the startups, for instance, I mean the main builders of the reactors coming from the universities, but that's the same thing which can be in the supply chain, or the targeting not directly the whole thing, like now we are going to build a reactor ourselves, but to building kind of the solving some of the problems. And this is something which can be very well, I believe, addressed to encourage the people from a university, the researchers, and so on, and to create some kind of initiatives which allows those people to take their research or the areas, show them how they can like boil it down, or to put it together and create some small company, for instance, targeting some specific area.
Yeah. Okay, summarizing, we need to put in value all the advantages that SMEs can bring. So, just a final round, in order you can express your main takeaways in one sentence. We can start with you, Philippe.
I think we are facing the same challenges in both our industries. And I think in the future, the success of both these industries will depend on scale. And when I mean scale, I mean how big are we willing to go, because the volume of commitment will unlock the required funding, will help the supply chain to industrialize, so that it moves from becoming an artisanal industry to an actual industry which can produce high quality components at scale to support fusion of the future. So fundamentally, we must think about scale, and we must think about how scale can be unlocked and deployed in the European context, because this is what other countries are doing, which has caused them to accelerate much faster.
Well, I think that we need to make fusion a political priority in Europe, and with that we can attract the necessary investments with collaboration and shared focus.
Well, I would argue that we need European industry to explore the limits of technology and the technology of limits. And this is a definition of what is fusion. And once you are in the limits, the business market is there, pretty sure. So this will be my message.
A quick one. Fusion is definitively an opportunity for Mega. Make Europe great again.
Okay, so after that, so I believe that I'm happy to see that we all know what we want to do, and I think it's time to change the stage, to move to how to do that. That's the new discussion. And the industry will have a key role in this.
Okay, I think we need to set very neat objectives. We have in place the structure to make it real, to make it happen. So money won't be infinite, so make it count, make it available timely.
Yeah, I believe there is plenty of creativity hidden, uncovered by some kind of bureaucracy. And this is something which I believe all we see from our research and from our activities, that this can be like changing the format of some tenders, for instance, to have not specific tenders which have specific deliverables and you do it or you fail and you are not paid. To have some open endings, like outcome of the tender and the project I gave is some gained knowledge, because this is, I believe, quite limiting the people to exploring, and the institutes and the companies exploring more things in a more creative way, that you always need to have the prescribed end and finish it. If you have like a tender, for instance, the project where the deliverables of your project are some outcomes, are some things which are not working, for instance, you explore the things which are not working. I'm not speaking about 100 million euro tenders. I'm speaking about few hundreds of thousands of millions, that this is something which can also contribute, that also the finding the way which is not working can be considered to be valuable.
Okay, we are delayed, but I want also to go to the question and answer session. So is there any question in the audience? No? Okay, if we don't have in-person questions, let's go to the Slido.
Belén, I can ask one if you want.
Okay.
No problem.
You
I
want?
always questions.
Okay.
Question for you. Do you think to have a European fusion agency could be a good idea? And what do you, to have a European fusion agency like the ESA could be interesting? We have Massimo with us. So maybe you can share your thought about that. If it's too dangerous, don't answer. To you.
I don't think I'm positioned to answer that, but maybe, you know, a nuclear agency, but there are already quite a few of those. So I think we should work with the ones we've got.
So the first question is, why do we need more than one fusion industry association? One common voice of European industry is more powerful? Maybe Bernard, you want to comment?
Coming back to my point, diversity is good for everybody. Let's move forward, bringing ideas, members, companies, and move forward. And that could progress the industry for fusion, and maybe one day it will be different.
I think we have already...
yeah, we have already discussed
if you want to discuss this point, come to me. I can talk to you, no problem.
Yeah, maybe is there any question now? No? I don't see anyone. Maybe I have one. What are the IP models that we need under these public-private cooperation schemes? Do you want to comment something?
I will say something, but so what are the IP models is not easy to respond now, but I have one thing clear, that IP should not be a problem, because the objective of the organization which is generating the IP now, which is public organization, and the objective of the industry that want to use it is very different. So I am sure, so I have been involved in few IP discussions in different fields with research organizations, and always is a question of understanding the other part and what they want. So I'm sure that it will not be a problem.
Antonio?
Still allow me to comment very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Today's contracts are very unsatisfactory from an IPR point of view, because that stays always with the buyer, basically, with few exceptions. And this is making our life very difficult.
Okay. Okay, we have a question.
Thank you. David Maisonnier, CEO from Easy Fusion. We look at the discussion, there is a lot of proposal and a lot of initiative for F4E that are put forward. But we heard not too long ago, Massimo mentioning that F4E has a primary mission, which is to deliver ITER. Now, isn't there an inconsistency between having the F4E joint undertaking, having to, first and of all, to deliver ITER, which I understand, and then expecting F4E to undertake all this mission? Is this compatible, or do we need to rethink what we can ask F4E to do?
I do think Fusion for Energy proved good at delivering ITER. It's not over yet, but they are, to my personal advice, to my personal opinion, the only structure of the European Union structured enough, competent enough from a commercial point of view, from a technical point of view, in order to handle this kind of complexity. I don't think we can afford to wait another, I don't know how many years to fund another institution. Other research institutions we have, which are research in nature, are not a procurement agency. So Fusion for Energy is a management company that is managing how to do things. Research institutions should set goals and collaborate with Fusion for Energy that will then deliver the products.
Carlos?
No, I don't see any contradiction. Once we accept that we need parallelization towards Fusion for Society, I think all the expertise of Fusion for Energy pushing for ITER as a key pillar of the European program actually is an asset to promote this parallelization that I think we all agree is needed now.
Okay, I think that we need to close now the session. I want to express my deepest gratitude to all of you. Thanks a lot to all the participants, to all the audience for being so active, and also to the organizers. So I think that a dinner is waiting for us. Thanks.